Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family, EEARTS family, Heart's Home family.
Hello, hello, hello.
As always, guys, check in daily. Most days we'll try to get a video up on each channel, Evolutionary EEARTS, and also Heart's Home, the newest channel. So what we wanted to touch on was some things that, as we constantly are getting new people in, we want to kind of do a review of things that Cindy and I might take as just basic knowledge, but is not basic knowledge for the masses. And maybe we can add a little bit of info that perhaps will ring some bells. I mean, it's always a possibility.
Oh, it's always good to go over this stuff because we tend to forget when we are on a journey and we are awakening. Sometimes, well, I think Mike and I we're in it all day, every day, and we might actually take that for granted. And we have to kind of remind ourselves that not everyone is up to where we're at, and it would be very advantageous for a lot of people to understand and see what we see and see things and how they unfold in, when we're not able to see past the veil, or if you are able to see past the veil, it's like, what exactly are you looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at certain things that we're taught, and you understand how completely erroneous they are, and you understand other things that are these great mysteries, which are really not a mystery at all. It's all right in front of our face if we just kind of open up our mind and let our, and when we say mind, I don't mean anything to do with your brain per se. It's the bigger field of consciousness that's out there, of which we are truly a part. So when we look at this depiction of a mollusk, I would say you are looking at an electrical charge all around it. Oh yeah, well, we are bioelectric beings, and even when the flesh is no longer operable, we're still consciousness itself, which does have an energetic charge.
We are part of that bigger field. We become part of that bigger field, and then we're able to see things from many other different perspectives and have understanding in a way. We are very much in this 3D, very dense body to have an experience. And that's something that I think we all need to keep in mind.
Absolutely. So when we understand that we are eternal consciousness, period, there's nothing you have to do to gain that. You already have that. That's who you are. You are consciousness. The human side of things is just the temporary side of things. This is a vehicle, nothing more, nothing less, and it has been, modified throughout time, and then it's been upgraded, then it's been modified, and then it's been upgraded. This is part of the cycle that we go through, as Cindy smiles as I say that. So when we look at these Carolyn photographs, we see the reality of the life force, the chi, the prana, the vril. And, again, I saw one comment day before yesterday where somebody was trying to make a differentiation between a satanic force and a Luciferian force, and then said something like, well, you wouldn't want to go down one of those new age roads. And, part of my thinking right away is, okay, somebody says new age road, and think about how that's gotten to be so negative in the minds of so many. Well, what age have you had your entire worldview encapsulated in? The dark age. Well, there's 3 other ages, right? And they're all lighter than the dark age. So why wouldn't you want to go somewhere that's a little lighter than what you've been, swimming in? If you've been swimming in a mucky, disgusting, filthy vat of horse, cow, moose, whatever, dung, wouldn't it be nice to at least get to a stream that had a little bit more clarity in the water? I would think so. It's just kind of obvious, but this is what the system does. The system puts fear in there. And, the only thing that can separate you from God's source is fear. That's it. So that's why fear dominates this world. Because, that is the ultimate goal. Keep you separated. Keep you isolated. The reality is we're never alone. We're never alone. And when we shed these vehicles, most of the time, you will find loved ones that you thought were long lost. No, they're not lost. They've been by your side the entire time. They'll be right there saying, welcome home. Welcome home. Again, when we look to the apple, it makes me think of a realization that Cindy had. And she had a experience of consciousness in which she was aware of the consciousness in an apple. And I'll let her tell about that.
Yeah, I'll do my best, because it really was very profound. It was very real. It was something that really changed me. As so many of us have these experiences while we're going through an awakening, but all of the sudden I was the consciousness in an apple, and I was the apple on the tree, and I am looking out over the yard, and I'm very much aware of myself. I'm very much aware of what my duty is. I'm very much aware of what's going to happen to me and what I want to happen to me. So it's like I have all of these emotions that I would think that anybody else would have, except they're directed in a different way. When I was that apple, I knew that I was going to be eaten. And what did I want? The one thing I wanted was to be prayed over. I want my vibration to go up as I enter a new form, enter a new body, to have a new experience. So that was very eye-opening. And it was something that was, I don't know, it just changes you. When suddenly you are that other being, and you're there, but you're someone else, and you have a realization that I thought, just apples, cherries, berries. I thought they just sit on a bush, they don't have any thought. They don't have any rhyme or reason to them, but that's not true. They're very much aware, and they're very much aware of their purpose on this planet, and they are a gift.
When you realize that ultimately, if we want to, define the ultimate reality, it is consciousness itself. Consciousness is the only thing that's permanent. It's the only thing that's permanent, but it's also always evolving, learning, growing, and changing. And that's why it takes different forms. And that's why it can take a form of an apple in order to be nourishment for the physical body of another being, and then take part in that other being's experience. You are not even the entirety of your consciousness. You're just a portion of your consciousness having this experience in most cases. Again, when we talk about the higher self, as we go up that road in consciousness, we come back to the totality of the all. And so you might think of it again as, good visualization might be the wind sweeps the vapor off the ocean and ends up depositing it later on the land. Now it seems like those little drops falling from the sky are totally isolated, but the reality is they're just part of the ocean in the first place, and they will make their way back to the ocean eventually as they transverse a journey of a new, unique experience, and that often happens time and time and time and time again. The life force is the missing key in many ways in Western science mind and understanding. And the reality is you actually have life force coming off of things like a wrench, a hammer, a table. Maybe you have had a favorite car. Maybe you named your car. Maybe some days she wasn't running so good, and you would just, pray over her and say, please let me make it to work today. I don't want to be late. And then she did, or you were stuck somewhere and you're like, please, just this once, start. And then it turned over. Again, when we get to the smallest level of matter, we understand that it interacts with intention. And yeah, ultimately, in some ways, there's really nothing that's truly void of consciousness. So instead of saying, the word dead or inanimate, it's kind of a misnomer because everything is imbued with a sort of consciousness. When we look at the palm, right? These are chakras, by the way. So, again, one of those terms, I don't believe in chakras. I'll hear people say, that was more like 20, 30 years ago. Although there are still some that in their ignorance don't understand that chakras are whirling vortices of energy. You could almost view them as wormholes. Oh man, there's so many things. They're energetic doorways. And so when we look to the look to the Bible, and when Moses had his hands up and was, standing there with his hands up, the Israelites were winning the battle. His hands start to go down, they start to lose the battle. Why? Because he's sending them. This is the esoteric mystery. There is the sending of energy through the chakras in the hands, which for healers, this is one of the prime ways that we work on people and send them energy. It's through the palm chakras, and each one of the fingers has a chakra on that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to me, I look at them, they are definitely energetic highways. They are information highways. This is where all the information you pull into your body from everything else that's around you, and it helps move your subconscious. We all have this aura around us, and it's always listening. I mean, it's this silent listening energy. And when we have traumas like a car crash, or when we have traumas emotional, that energy can get distorted and pull in other energies that are of a distorted value, and that can kind of throw us off a little bit. And that's where we kind of get into a realignment, soul realignment. But you have to you got to be really ready for something like that, because things will come at you in a way where you may not be quite ready to handle them again. But soul alignments are very important. They're something that I think everyone should do, providing they're ready, and maybe even ask about. And because that can really help not just heal you, but it can help heal your family line. So think of those chakras are information highways, and pulling in all the other information around you so that your subconscious can make these decisions.
When we look to most of these Hindu deities and statues of them, we'll see that it's often the case, most of the time, they have at least one hand that's open with the palm facing you. And that's a blessing, because again, they're sending energy. Lakshmi, abundance. What's happening? It looks like gold is coming out of her palm. Oh, there's a swastika on her palm. Yeah, again, when we take the Nazi symbol and they distort it and twist it, they do this with everything. That's a solar wheel, so to speak. So it's a positive symbol of life and energy, and in many ways abundance as well. And they've distorted it. They always distort everything. It's just part of their way. Anything that's good, they will try to twist and distort. So again, it's the chakras. And when you look at Vishnu, one of the things that he is always swirling is the chakra. It's one of the symbols of Vishnu. It's his weapon, so to speak. And Vishnu is the creator, preserver. The chakra is the doorway. And in fact, the chakras are doorways of consciousness. Absolutely. So again, nothing is truly inanimate. The life force is all around us. There's a reason why we have all the symbols that we have. And it's for those that have wisdom and understanding to explain to others. And, the butterfly is a beautiful thing. Of course, when it's in the larva stage, it doesn't look so good.
No, that poor thing has to completely liquefy before it turns into what you're looking at on the screen. And this is a really interesting picture, because if you look on would be my left, look at that little black spot on the wing. That is a tear in its little aura. And these are things that Mike and I work on to help people heal those tears so they're getting in the proper amount of information. What has happened is the information is not going in where that little black tear is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, our energy, our aura, people will say, what's my aura? And we could tell you now, but it's going to probably change in a few moments because, again, it all depends on our moods. So you get a text message and, something horrible happened. All of a sudden, it's going to change. Or get a text message, something wonderful happened. All of a sudden, it's going to change. Again, it's something that's always morphing. And our energies are always morphing. This is where the dark side knows if they can get people trapped in negative, lower vibrations, they could control them. And so the key is keeping our vibrations high and not getting caught up in the drama. See, this is part of that Buddhist attachment, so to speak. We've used that term before, and the guides actually came through and said, oh, you're going to be tested. You're going to have to develop that Buddhist attachment to a higher degree because we're going to see chaos around us, but we can't be part of the chaos. You have to rise above the chaos and not let the chaos influence you. And there are examples of that throughout history of people that have been mired and conflict's been all around them. Chaos has been all around them. And they rise up to an all new level of peace and love and understanding. And they help those around them, often with even to some degree, putting themselves in peril. I was going to say disregard to their surroundings, but we should always be aware of our surroundings. Because one of the things, too, is when you're giving off a real positive frequency and vibration, again, the dark side will often try to attack you more frequently because it's of a lower frequency and vibration. And they do work through trauma, so they control people through trauma. And we see this world's had nothing but nonstop warfare. And more warfare just leads to more trauma, so that doesn't lead to any sort of resolution. It's only when the soldiers refuse to fight each other that you will have a true awakening going on.
When they see those energy bodies that are getting quite big and quite bright, when we're on that spiritual journey and we are consciously working on making our energy body bigger, they look at that as a great big meal. It's a great big buffet. If they can just squeak in there when you're in the right frame of, or wrong frame of mind, however you want to view that, they can get in there and they can come in through a crack or through an energy that has dipped all of a sudden. So that's why we really got to watch our thoughts. And we've gone over that with Dr. Emoto's work, how he did brilliant work with the understanding of good thoughts, bad thoughts, and what those actually look like inside of our bodies. So consciously always lifting yourself up if you catch yourself down.
As you see, there's less life force because when the food is cooked, as opposed to when it's raw. So again, trying to eat as much live, quote unquote, food as possible is a good idea. And so for those of you out there that are predominantly plant-based, again, steer very clear of those Frankenstein burgers and all those things that have like 30 or 40 ingredients. No, go for one ingredient, like a tomato, like broccoli, like lettuce, a carrot, an apple, the way nature made it. Oh, sure, you could cut them up and, put them in a lovely salad. And one of the things that has the most life force is sprouts. Sprouts are teeming with life force.
Mm-hmm. And they're so easy and quick to make. If you have a mason jar and, some little bean things, you throw them in there with a little bit of water and you have some sprouts pretty quick.
One of the things that I've seen, the correlation between negative attitude and people that eat a lot of processed food, it really brings you down emotionally. It makes sense too, because you are just trillions of cells and other things living in you, because you are a universe unto yourself. And if they're not being fed properly, if they're not being nourished properly, those individual units of consciousness, because that's what they are going to be not too happy. And thus you're not going to be too happy. So have you ever had some food, or, I notice it a lot when we do fresh juice and we have a shake. I feel like my cells are happy. They're just happy. And I could feel that they are happy. It's the same thing with Mother Earth too. When we're living in harmony with the earth and we're not polluting it, we're not, toxifying it constantly. And again, this is not part of that agenda that's out there now, because that's just a political ploy. The reality is, when we have respect for the earth and we wouldn't do certain things in the first place, everything around us will be a lot calmer and tamer. The weather will be better. Yeah, absolutely. The way we treat each other and the way we treat the earth will have an effect on the weather.
Mm-hmm. And going back to eating whole food, healthy food, when I was, for that moment in time, an apple, I was in a very pleasant mood and everything was okay. And things were I was in a state of being. So when we do take that into our body, we're going to adapt that type of energy. Now, if you're eating something that's dead or has tons of preservatives that's put in stasis, that's going to kind of deaden you too.
Absolutely. And we think about GMO foods, they have a lot less nutritional value typically than truly organic. And then today's organic, grown in today's soil, a lot less nutritional value than that of 100 years ago. Because farming techniques and just the general overall pollution, as well as other factors, has lowered the value, the true value of our food supply. So as you see this, instead of always thinking in terms of nutritional value or your macronutrients, you have people thinking only about their macros. In other words, carbohydrates, protein, and fats, and you should be thinking about your micros. Yes, making sure you're getting enough vitamins and minerals, but also think about the life force, because ultimately that's going to have a huge, huge impact. If you're taking in dead food, it's going to quicken that to you. It's going to lead to your ultimate demise much quicker. So when we see halos around the saints, as you see, Yeshua, Jesus here, with depiction with the disciples, why do they have a golden halo? Well, obviously, gold is a high frequency, vibrational frequency, and it's saying that they gave off this light. And in fact, when we have Pentecost and little fires, of flame flickering on their crown chakra, that's interesting in and of itself as well. And, again, some can read auras, some can see the energy, the life force. And I've shared with you guys, I first started seeing the life force, I think I was 22, and it sent me right to the eye doctor multiple times, and everything was okay. And then I realized I was seeing the life force, the prana, the chi, and then I would just zone out in corporate meetings, and I'd watch everybody's auras change as the news changed, that from our bosses. If you had a bad day, I'd see people's energies shrinking, and then the other ones who were the top of the corporate ladder for that month, their energy was expanding, and I would just watch their energies.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you got to be in that state where you can hold your focus and pull your focus in, because it can kind of mess with you. And I don't really recommend people, if you're not really efficient and good at it, don't give that part of things a lot of attention, because after all, we did come into this 3D world for that 3D experience. And if we're doing the right things, then the right things will definitely happen. But when you're turning on those parts of your ability, that can distract you. And if there's traumas going on, those can kind of be irritated. So there's a lot that goes on when we are able to see, and it's a lot of responsibility too. I mean, you really have to be good and centered, because it is a big responsibility.
Yeah, Absolutely. And it's not just the Christian faith that you see these halos depicted. I mean, we see it around Buddha all the time. We see it, all over the world. Again, the chakras are real, and they're very real. Now, these are the 7 main that lie basically along what we would call the Taiji pole. And that is basically kind of a center pole that runs through the body, but it's not limited just to the body. In reality, it extends all the way deep into the earth. It anchors us and roots us in the earth and extends all the way out into the cosmos. And in reality, it goes all the way to the source, which is all around us all the time. So as you can see, the root chakra, sacral, solar, heart, throat, third eye, and crown. And they have their corresponding energies. As you see, they're calling this the I am over here. Well, the root is all about grounding. It's all about being in the physical. These are doorways. And so in the Hindu tradition, each one of these chakras is ruled by a different deity. And so the deity that rules, and when we say deity, we just mean a little bit more spiritually advanced being. Let's just say that. And again, it's not source, but then source is in everything anyway. So it is source in a way, because source is in you and me, all of us. But Ganesha, who is the remover of obstacles in the Hindu tradition, rules the root chakra. And this is why traditionally when we do our mantras and meditation, and we start doing them in the mornings, we get out in the sun whenever possible and do them. We start with Ganesha because you want to initiate yourself into that meditative state of mind by first rooting and grounding. And so Ganesha removes the obstacles by getting you grounded and rooted so you could build upon it.
Mm-hmm. And it's also giving you the information that you need to heal yourself. If there's things that are wrong with your physical body, getting out there and grounding, activating that root chakra. Remember I said it was like an informational highway. You're going to be pulling in that information that you need to make yourself feel better. So if you've been sickly and you're not doing well, you definitely want to focus on that root chakra and pull in that information, because it's like a subconscious silent information. It's almost like you run across things on accident that are going to help you heal yourself. But because you have activated that in a deliberate way, that information is going to much, much easier come to you.
Absolutely. And so when we do not allow ourselves to process certain emotions, and when we are, say, stifled, say you're in a relationship in which you cannot communicate freely, and you're constantly having to hold your thoughts and shut up, that's going to end up over time causing issues with the throat chakra, which is going to cause issues with your thyroid. So how many have had thyroid problems out there? Raise your hands. Well, how many of those have had problems where you couldn't speak up in a relationship, whether that was a spouse or a parent, or could be anybody, could be a boss? They go hand in hand. The Christ consciousness, the Christ center, so to speak, if we're talking about that love consciousness, obviously the heart chakra. At this point in time, even if we didn't have all the plague upon the land and all the extra stuff that goes with it, we would still have a lot of heart issues in this time, because the ascension process itself is forcing us to work through things of an emotional, traumatic nature. And where we've felt betrayal, where we felt, all sorts of heartache and heartbreak. This is the time where we are to work through these things and purge them. And of course, often that heart center, when it's hurt, it's also being affected below it with the solar plexus. Now that's what I would call the I am center, is the solar plexus. And the solar plexus, it's all about being okay with yourself, because often when you're in an abusive relationship and you're told things negative about yourself, then that also, besides hurting your heart, it's also going to hurt your self-esteem. And you can see how the energy flows. And then often you get stifled. One person will be stifling the other more often than not. and somebody will not be able to express themselves fully, and or they'll just say, I don't want to go down this route, I don't want to have that fight again. So they just shut up and they start to develop issues with their thyroid. They might gain 50 pounds, and then at some point in time, that relationship might end, or they might just get that aha moment and be like, I can't work this out. Or maybe something happens and they do work it out, and then they might end up shedding the weight later too.
And that's what happens when, you have certain blocks removed, or when you go through an alignment. It's like now that information is once again free flowing through your chakras to your chakras. And if that thing that stifles you happens again, you might not be so tolerant of it. You really might not. And you might just decide, okay, that I can't work this out this way, so I need to do something different, or I need to move on, or I need to take a break. But it does kind of force you into actually doing something about it. There's this little thing I like to call white knuckling with our emotions. And I think you guys know exactly what that means. If you've ever been in California traffic, you're white knuckling and you're just trying to plow through without processing and just holding on to all this garbage and all this baggage. Well, that bag just gets heavier and heavier and heavier if you're not going to be dumping it out. Where do you think it goes? It's going to back up and it's going to pollute your body. So we have got to find ways to process information some way, shape, or form. The problem in lies that there's been so much trauma in this world that maybe your reaction to something is so wildly different that it might not be appropriate to express your feelings because you're so terribly triggered, as you should be, because you've been through so much trauma. And I do tell people, please, when you're in that place and you're on a spiritual journey, pull out your notebook and write this stuff down. I went through that for a lot of my life, and I revisit it. Sometimes I just cannot work through things, but I have to express them, or it keeps piling up. My baggage keeps piling up inside of my energy body. We have to empty it.
Absolutely. And when we look to the Ajna chakra, the third eye chakra, that's all about vision, true vision. And again, when that is really working, then you're not so dependent on analyzing things with the logical brain. But it is also so important to have that crown chakra open and connected to the higher realms, because that's when you really can't be tricked. When you are connected to your higher self and you're connected to your guides, and you're, you have a lot of guides. That most people do have a lot of guides, and the more work we do for others, the more we are part of the solution and trying to help the planet, and trying to help all those on it, whether it's human or animal or plant or anything. The more guides you're going to attract, because again, we are basically in a much more lower realm than the majority of all that there is as far as consciousness. So we have to realize we are, down. We are kind of in the muck and the mire. We're in a place, not for the faint of heart.
No. And when we talk about helping other people, remember how important it is to help yourself first. We really, when we go through these spiritual journeys, many times things hit us because we are healers in some way, shape, or form, but we really have to figure it out for ourselves first and keep pulling ourselves back into this 3D world, because then people might kind of fall into something like escapism, or avoidance, and just like, I don't want to deal with my own stuff. Let's go deal with somebody else's because it's easier. Then no, we really got to walk through it ourselves. And unless you really, truly get that calling, keep working on yourself, and then all the right things will happen when they're supposed to.
So for the energy to flow the way it's intended, all these must be open. All these must be open. And I didn't really touch much on the sacral, but then again, the sacral is the center of, it's taken to be the feeling, the sensual center. Obviously, it's the reproductive center. And we could see what's going on right now on the planet in relation to that, and the lack of clarity in the natural order of things and how things are intended to flow. Because again, as we were saying in yesterday's video when we were talking about the fact that astrology is a way you can read the matrix. And so if you're one of those that said, I didn't choose my parents, they had me, I wouldn't choose to be here at this point in time in this place. Well, you're totally wrong. You did. You chose. And yes, there are some karmic repercussions, which you could think of it as karma is in some ways that which gives us the playing field in which we have the ability to come into. So it all depends on, again, what we've done in the past. The more we can raise our frequency, the more expansive things become to us. When we do have a full developed Merkaba light body, and again, if you want to look to when Christ Jesus was supposedly seen after the crucifixion in that resurrection body, and they didn't recognize him at first, again, there are allegories. As we said, the Bible is given to us by the control system. It does have truths in it. There are spiritual nuggets in there that you can glean. Again, when we talk about the 7 churches, really, this is what we're talking about, the seven chakras. And, so much of it is right there. I mean, it even talks about that great old, serpent of old and the dragon. And, again, the dragon, ultimately what we're battling is kind of an AI dragon consciousness. It likes to depict itself as a dragon. But there are real dragons as well on different densities. This is all part of the intermingling of the truths with the distortions. In order for your energy to flow, you have to have all these chakras open. Every time they create a new trauma, it distorts our energy flow, and it creates a blockage, and we can't connect to the higher realms. Because again, you have to have your root chakra, sacral chakra, solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye all open in order to really have that flow up through the crown. It's again just a way that they can keep us rooted in this muck and mire world and the lower frequencies. So when they hit us with root chakra things like collapse of the money system, eviction, lost your job, all that, food, this is all root chakra issues. When they hit us with the sacral chakra, it's all about a distortion of the 2 polarities, which are, obvious, the masculine and the feminine polarity. Well, obviously, that's getting all distorted. The I am center, the solar plexus, who are we? Again, they're telling us who we are. They're closing off our hearts with nonstop war and violence, and they tell us not to speak up. They put a mask on our face, and, does your voice really count? Again, that's attacking the throat chakra. The third eye chakra is attacked many different ways, including fluoridated water and GMO foods, lower vibrational foods, processed foods, basically trying to keep the sun from us with all the fake clouds in the sky and all that. Yeah, it goes on. And all that keeps us from, I understand, realizing who we are, and it keeps us in that fight or flight. This is what's going on. This is a spiritual battle, and it's fascinating to see too. Now, I haven't had the time to go through and see if I agree with, and ask Cindy if she agrees with the notes, because again, we've talked about this. There are 7 of these major chakras. There are actually thousands of chakras. There's also 7 notes, and it's all about scale. Because like if we're playing a piano from left to right, those 7 keep repeating. And of course you have the flats and the sharps. And, there again, this is all reflected in the mystery teachings. And it's just the way consciousness runs. But also when we do our mantras and we're verbalizing certain sounds, certain frequencies, we're helping to open those chakras.
Mm-hmm. You know, when I look at the notes, I see things a little bit different. I see things in a dimensional fashion. So when I'm listening to music, I see what is going on in the body. I can see the reorganization or the organization for that matter, and if it's getting distorted or if it's coming into some type of focus that is going to be beneficial. And I also feel the notes in my body. And if it's really distorted, I can't. It's like nails on a chalkboard. I have to leave the room. I cannot tolerate it. Just hurts. I mean, I like my fair share of music that is really different, but really if it does distort, then it distorts my body. So I know exactly what's happening in people's energy fields when certain music is happening, and then I can also see it. So there are songs that really I feel strongly are inspired through Illuminati. You know, I think that they are able to upload or download, for that matter, into certain musicians music that can be expansive, and also music that can, you know, contract the energy body and put someone in a state of fear and cause a lot of chaos. So music, definitely, it's something. And I love when you're listening to the piano music, like Mozart, like Bach, all of this has expansive notes to it, which expand your pineal gland, also expands your heart. So that's really interesting, I felt, when it comes to the music notes. And also if you're into tuning forks and stuff, there's certain notes that belong to each chakra, but I pick what is needed. I don't ask, I don't do things the logical way. No, I pick what the guides are telling me to pick and work on that with that person in that tone and help recalibrate whatever organ needs to be recalibrated.
And that's part of that listening that it takes time to develop, and often it does take lifetimes. And so again, when we see this design, you see the snake symbolism, right? It's the Ida and the Pingala, which run upside the Sushumna. And the Sushumna is the totality of the balanced energies of the Ida and the Pingala. And, you know, that's what it takes. And our society is purposely imbalanced, completely purposely. And, you know, you could view it again as yin and yang, so to speak, you know, lunar energy, and solar energy, masculine, feminine, all those apparently opposing, but in reality, they're part of how the entirety of this matrix works. And so when you look at this too, when I'm doing my Qigong, and even when I'm just doing any sort of meditation, I'm always consciously drawing in energy through the crown chakra and through the feet chakra, and also that ends up activating the root chakra, as well as the chakras that are literally up above our head and also down in the ground. And so we're taking in the yin and the yang in that manner, and we can build that energy. And so we have a yin side and a yang side, but we want to balance it and we want to have it flow. So again, this in so many ways is a clear representation of the very, very simple way of viewing things as Mother Earth and Father Sky, which, you know, so cutely depicted here is Father Sky, Mother Earth. I mean, it's the yin and the yang. It's the polarity that work in conjunction. So there's so much wisdom in the Tao Te Ching. There's so much wisdom in the I Ching. There's so much wisdom in the Sanatana Dharma, in so many of the Eastern traditions. And there's also a lot of wisdom in Hermeticism, in Gnosticism, and in the Kabbalah. Find your balance. balance. The problem is this world is out of balance, and now they're just trying to scramble it into an omelet that you can't unscramble. I mean, it's insanity what is going on, but it's also a diabolical insanity that's completely purposeful. And so here again, you see the nadis. And when you see the depiction, this is the staff of Hermes. Hermes is the messenger of the gods. Why is it the messenger of the gods? Well, because, if we could translate this to the tree of life and basically depict the tree of life on this very easily. It's the same thing that's showing us. It's again, the balanced energies rising up through the nadis, and it's the ascension process itself at the same time. The chakras depicted, when we look to like the AMA and their symbol, it's just one side of things. Because it's about keeping us stuck. It's imbalance. They're all about imbalance. They control through imbalance, because you have to recognize, again, the controllers of this world are not who you see. The controllers of this world are stuck. They are completely stuck. They cannot go any higher, but you can. And the way you're going to go higher is not like being like them. No, exact opposite. So as they are trying to get everybody to descend into chaos, find your peace. And the eye of Horus, the all-seeing eye that so many people are terrified of, in reality, again, it's just the pineal gland, and it's just the importance of the pineal gland, which really does look like a pine cone. And then you wonder, well, why is all that pine cone symbolism? Dionysus, this is pre-church, and yet it is also the same thing that we see with the Pope's staff, the pine cone. Osiris, this is way before the Catholic Church. It's way before Christianity, but it's all part of the control grid. They are saying they shut off the world's pine cone. They shut off the world's pineal gland, so the world's in the dark. And they control that power, is what they're saying with the symbolism.
Mm-hmm. And we had a really interesting question by one of our family members that we work on regularly, and she was seeing snakes all over the place. And when we look into Western culture, the snake or the serpent, it has this bad reputation as if it's something bad or if it's something reptilian, and it's not. When you're seeing snakes or getting visions of snakes, that's the awakening of your energy body. That's when things are lighting up. That energy speaks to a profound amount of wisdom that's awakening in your body now. And people usually have some type of strange energy come to them, and it might show itself in the form of a snake. And that doesn't mean that you're surrounded by reptilians or bad anything at all. That means that the wisdom that has been locked inside is now opening up. And then these are always so fun. I mean, this is one of my favorites. See this guy? We are really no different. We're no different than our pets. They have that ability to make decisions and share and give the little guy.
Yeah, but did you notice what the little guy is?
No, I didn't see what he is. I thought he was a puppy. Oh, he's a little pig. See, the dog, he doesn't care, and he pats him on the top of the head. The dog doesn't care that he's a little pig. He doesn't see, when it comes to animals, they don't decipher because of the spacesuit. I think it's only humans. I mean, we're one of the silliest types of beings, because we might look at other people's spacesuits and make some kind of a judgment on that. But, again, it's been indoctrinated in us in some way, shape, or form. But when you look at animals, when we look at our pets, they don't have that extra layer of indoctrination, and they're just going to act on who they are.
So, while we have been extremely critical of the overall composition of the totality of the Bible, because if you look closely again, the Gnostics, pointed out, hey, there's this really dark force in there that's pretending to be God's source, but then people will also focus on some of the beauty in there, and not look at other aspects. Like my mom would say, I don't read the Old Testament. I don't like the Old Testament. It scares me. It's dark. I don't like that God. I like the God that Jesus talks about. That's what my mom used to always say. And then even like when she was so close to passing on, and I would just tell her, you're just going to find that you're no longer in your body. You're just going to all of a sudden be free of the body. And she would say to me, well, I don't know, Mike. And I would say, I do know. And she would kind of be like, well, we'll see, And this is a woman that went to church all the time. She wasn't like one of those ladies that went multiple times a week or anything like that, but she did go regularly. And yet she really didn't have... it wasn't really necessarily ringing true to her, but there were things that she liked in it. And then when she was, a day before she really did pass, and I was in Nevada, she was in Connecticut, I was meditating, and I was doing standing meditation, and I felt somebody tug on my beard. And I knew it was my mom, and I knew she was close to passing on. And, so then I reached out and, I got my sister, and my sister confirmed that my mom was close to passing. And she did pass. But then she appeared to Cindy, and she was dancing out of her body because, 90 years old. She was a dancer all her life, and like the last 5 years, she couldn't move well, and she was so happy to be out of her body.
She was moving really fast. She was walking really fast, and it's quite interesting when people leave the body. They can actually see. I could see them in whatever they passed away in. So she was still in her hospital jammies, and she was so excited. She didn't stop and realize, hey, I can change my clothes. No. It was all about her getting out of the body and being able to move and stretch and not be in pain and be free and be happy. And she wanted to come and see her son and show her son what she could do again. So that was a really beautiful thing to be a witness of.
And my mom, again, my dad passed 22 years before her. And it did scare her because he came to her, and she didn't have, at least she didn't share all these paranormal experiences. Like I've had what's called paranormal experiences my entire life, as had Cindy, but it's just because of who we are and what we've done in past lives. When my dad died, he did like a couple days later show up before my mom, and it scared her, but it also reassured her that he was still around. He didn't just disappear. And, we could see them now. And now, my mom, for when she had first passed on, I've shared this before, she was thinking about reincarnating literally in Asia, which is so weird because she was not a world traveler. In fact, she hardly ever traveled more than maybe 50 miles away from her hometown, but then decided to go up to 5D after that fact. And so when she did pass on, we got from the guides that she was, if we want to look at 4D or the astral realm in its entirety, she was at 4.45. So she was kind of in the middle, and she did choose to ascend up to 5D to basically be more of a angelic guide. And that's not what she was initially thinking that she was going to do. So again, we have choices on the other side. You're not at the you're not under the control of anybody but yourself, really, and the karma that we also accrue, and the vibrational frequency that we are at. So if you are somebody that gets caught in the muck and the mire, and this is where we have to be so careful, because you can be so good but then be pulled into the horrible drama that might unfold at certain points in history, such as World War I, World War II, and what we're facing right now. They know this. If they can create this trauma, they can even trap somebody that would be totally free, so that you're going to have to work cycles to get yourself out of that lower vibrational loop. This is what they're trying to do. Now, when you say what's some of the best of the Bible, I think a lot of people would go to the Beatitudes because they are beautiful. And I'm sure you guys have heard all these. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And we were talking about on Heart's Ohm, something akin to the kingdom of heaven. And again, everything is basically a temporary experience if we so choose, because you can get to a certain place and just choose to stay there for as long as you like, because you are eternal consciousness.
Yeah, I know, and I really hate to say it, but when after we leave this body, we do tend to get bored and we start looking around for the next experience. What do we want to add to our energy? What do we want to add to our consciousness? What kind of new energies are we going to have to play with in the next life? Yes, we definitely do that.
Blessed are they who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure of hearts, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So certainly, if you look at that and really, really take it to heart, you would have to say that when you see the chaos unfolding around you, it's certainly not telling you to be chaotic and destructive. It's telling you the exact opposite. Hold on to your peace and do not let them take your peace from you. Do not let them turn you into them.
No, definitely not. You don't want to go do anything to match their ways, because that puts you right at their level.
Hold the high ground. So, as always, guys, thanks for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. We couldn't do it without you guys. Much love, God bless, and namaste.
Namaste.